Hey, what's up guys and welcome back to askNK. This is our weekly rundown of events, updates, and beautiful stuff happening within the Blender community, Blender Foundation, and also Blender as an app. And this week we do have very cool stuff that you guys will want to take a look at. Meanwhile, there's a major elephant in the room that I think it's best for me to address these things so that you guys will be able to be in the knowing of how these things actually work and also have a fun time playing with it and creating some amazing stuff. And what we're talking about has to do with Blender 2.93. Right now, Pablo has actually gone ahead to make the Sculptex Band tool available for anyone who wants to play with it. So just in case you want to grab this, you want to play with it, you can simply go over to blender.org and then go over to the experimental branch and download a fresh copy of Blender 2.93. That way you'll be able to have fun and also experiment and also play with this beautiful tool that he has released to the public. So what is this Sculptex Band and how does it work? If you've been around the channel for some time now, you literally know that for the past 2 weeks, 3 weeks, we've been talking about it with all of the Blender updates. You would see that right now that we have it. So let's go ahead and make some subdivision. I'm just simply going to go through, make this about 6 or 7, and then simply apply that. Press the tab key to confirm. Let's subdivide this one more time and jump right here. So the Sculptex Band is actually a brand new set of tools that would help you make different variations of design, patterns, and also shape. And combining this with the cloth filter and also the mesh filter, you can now create some incredible hard surface and also stylized looking surfaces directly in the sculpt room. So things that will take you time to make, you literally would have fun making these things by default. And yes, I know a lot of you guys will be saying the Sculptex Band has existed in Blender before, and yes, it has actually existed, but this is a revamped and actually way better one. So by default, if you're using previous versions of Blender, if you hit Shift and A, this is all you get. You don't get anything more than that, all right? But take a look at this bad boy right now. If we jump over and we do a Shift and A and we do that, we can actually do things like this, and you can see that. And we can also do things like so. And you can actually do some cooler stuff like this. So we can do some cool things like this. Can you do that in your previous versions of Blender? No. And by the way, this is also something that is really cool that can help you create things that looks this way, all right? So for those who like to create things looking this cool, this is definitely something that can get you up to speed with something like that. So how does this work? So by default, when you want to make mask directly here, you can do that by pressing M on the keyboard, and you can paint your mask. And then if you hit Alt and M on the keyboard, you can deactivate your mask. One thing to also keep in mind is the Sculptex Band works with the facet and also the masking tool. Getting started is simple. Before we talk about how you can get started, always remember that once you tap A on your keyboard within your sculpting room, it brings out the masking menu or the masking pie menu. And once you press W on your keyboard, it brings out the facet pie menu. So if you like to mask, or if you like to start expanding or playing with the Sculptex Band masking tool, you need to hold down Shift and tap A. And once you do that, you would notice that we have this radial looking thing from the middle, and this is considered to be the circular geodesk fall off. And you can actually do some very fun stuff with this, because this is not the only shape that you have. If you press 2 on your keyboard, you get the diagonal one, and if you press 3 on your keyboard, you get a square, and then 4 would give you the spherical stuff. All right, so this way you can actually start making some very lovely stuff. Now it doesn't stop here, all right? So once you do something like this and then you go over to where you have your mesh filter, you can choose to inflate this, all right? So we can choose to inflate this and do some stuff, but this is not where the whole magic is. The magic is actually when you can start making some stylized looking patterns by simply using this. So what do I mean? If I hold down Shift and tap A on the keyboard, you notice we have that. And if I go ahead, all right, and press W on the keyboard and tap W one more time and one more time and one more time and one more time and one more time, you can now see the fun, all right? So you get the idea. You can now make some radial looking things. And just think about how much time this is going to save you, especially for environment artists, for people trying to make abstract art. This is definitely going to come in very, very handy. So if you do something like that, you can have this, and then you can simply go over to the mesh filter, get the inflate, and then make something like so. All right, so with something like this, it's easy for you to now start making some very nice looking patterns. Let's back up a bit, and actually let's jump all the way back, because I think this bad boy needs to be subdivided one more time. So let's get that subdivision and then tap out, right click, and get this to be shaded smooth. All right, so let's go back and explore some more stuff. So if you also hold down Shift and tap A on your keyboard, you can now switch to a different shape. All right, so once you switch to a shape like this, you can still do the same thing. So if you tap W on your keyboard, you can make several kind kind of shapes like this, and if you tap Q on your keyboard, you can revert what you've already done. So if we tap W, we can increase. If we tap Q, we can decrease, and this would come in very, very handy for a lot of people. Now there is also this beautiful magic that I think it's excellent. Okay, it's excellent. Now to show you guys this, let me start from a simple point like so. So from a point like this, so let's say I go ahead and right from the tip I tap Shift and A, you notice we now have something like so. So if you're coming from any part of your model, let's say from the edge of the model, and you tap Shift and A, in most cases it gives you this sort of wipe kind of, you know, masking that you can work with. And for those who will be saying, oh, you've just been talking about the masking stuff, show us some more cool stuff with the face set. Okay, so for the face set, if you hold down Shift and tap W on your keyboard, right here you get the face set thing, and you can actually do a lot of cool things with this one. All right, so let's say for the face set, if I also go right here and tap Shift and W on the keyboard, and I get to a point like so, I can now tap W and get some more things like so. And then we can also do the same thing from here, tap Shift and tap W and come right over there. And once I keep tapping W, you notice that we're making this interesting pattern. So with a pattern like this, you can start having fun and doing some cool stuff. Now, it makes sense to see that we can have this across the other one, and we sort of are inverting, not really inverting, but you know, we are layering what we had previously on top of this other one. Okay, but you might be wondering, what about if we're doing this for the masking? How is it possible that we can get a grid lighting for the mask? And yes, it is possible. And by the way, for those who will be wondering, can you still use the mesh filter right here? Of course you can. If you have your inflate selected, if you go over here to where you have your options, you can simply select face set, and once you do that, you can use whatever face set that is available and do some more cool stuff. Okay, so you can use whatever face set that you have selected and do some cool stuff. But let's get back and talk about something I think would blow your mind. And what I'm talking about next is the fact that if I hold down Shift and tap A on the keyboard, and we go all the way to a point like so, and I tap W and we create something like this. Okay, so once we create something like this and I click, I can also come from a different standpoint and do this, and you can see that the previous one just simply gets deleted. Now you might be saying, okay, but that doesn't look close to what we were doing before. All right, so I'm just going to show you guys that once you have this going, if you go ahead and press E on your keyboard, it overlaps your previous mask with your present mask, so that way you can start making some good patterns. Actually, let me go back and show you guys something else. So if I actually do this, Shift and tap A on the keyboard, and then I press 2, all right, we can get up to a point like that and press W a couple of times, and we can get something like this. And we can actually make it even more interesting by doing the Shift and A from this point, and then we will tap out. All right, and then we'll tap 2 to get the diagonal stuff. And once we keep tapping stuff like this, we can simply tap E on the keyboard to layer this mask. And once you start layering mask like this, it's very easy for you to start making some very cool patterns and also cool designs for yourself. So just think about this as something that would save you time when you want to create some very cool and fun looking things. So at any point in time you would like to do something like that, yep, you can, and you can see how easy it is for you to make something this cool. All right, just look at this. This looks beautiful. So once we clear our mask, you can see how cool this is. Let's go over here, make sure that we turn on the cavity, and maybe set this to both so you can see this in all of its glory. Nice. So let's jump back and actually turn this off. You know, that was a show off. So let's go back again and let's talk about some more cool stuff. Now the next thing which I would like to show you guys is something that Pablo also showed off, which is the fact that you can also add things that has to do with gradients. Now I think a lot of people will get their mind blown by this one, because at any point in time you do a Shift and A, and then you simply either expand or, you know, you decrease depending on what you're doing. Once you tap G, which is the starting letter for gradient, you can start adding some sort of gradient. You know, if you tap, you turn on the gradient. If you tap the G one more time, you turn it off. Tap to turn it on, tap to turn it off. And if you keep expanding this, you can even have way more stuff. So this way it's even way interesting, and the kind of results that you can get with this one is just absolutely stunning. So we can do that, and then because we have the inflate ready, we can also use the inflate to create some sort of pattern. And because this is the mesh filter, of course you can do a lot of things. You can set this within this point, and then you can go over to the filter type and set this to smooth and use the filter and smooth out a lot of things, and this way you can have some pretty cool stuff happening for you. Now think about trying to make these things yourself and see how crazy and how much time this is actually saving you. Now with this beautiful thing said, let's talk about two more things which I guess are major highlights that you will definitely need this tool for. And we're talking about nothing more than the fact that you can now simply do something called a recursion, and the recursion actually happens once you go in, and I'm just going to show you guys this one real quick. So once you go in and you hold down shift and tap A on your keyboard and you press R, you would notice that we are actually having some sort of recursion happening here. Now this in its sense is beautiful, I like it, but you probably wouldn't see so much use case for this if you're not working with something that would literally help you get some sort of organic design. Okay, so if we also switch and hold down shift and tap A on the keyboard and I switch over to the diagonal stuff and press R, of course this looks cool. But right now, if I keep doing that, you can start noticing that we're having some sort of pattern happening. So in case you want to do some recursion, maybe you want to just simply repeat certain things across different parts of your model, this might definitely come in handy. So in terms of patterns and stuff like this, but I'll also go through and show you guys something else that makes so much sense. And that has to do with you having a model right here within the sculpting room, and then going over to where you have your textures. And right here, we're just simply going to click on new. And once we do that, switch these to clouds. All right, so you can select any of the textures that you want, and the thing here is you can literally drive this with textures. Now if we go ahead and press shift and tap A on the keyboard, you'll notice that once we press Y on the keyboard, nothing happens. What happens is just simply moving this down. And by the way, if you would like to move this mask around, you need to hold down the space bar, and that way you can reposition this wherever you want. So how do we make use of the texture to drive this? How do we create a sort of noise pattern and do all of that cool stuff? Because we've already created this, we can simply select any of the brushes that we want to work with, go over to the brush palette, scroll all the way down, go over to where we have texture, load up that texture, and set the mapping from tile to 3D. And what happens is it doesn't matter what position you are or how you're looking at this stuff. If you hold down shift and tap A on your keyboard and now press Y, you would notice that we're getting some very cool pattern. All right, so it reminds me so much about the Watchman character known as Rorschach, as you know, this just simply looks really, really nice. So you can go ahead and just do that one more time, press Y on the keyboard, and that way you can expand and also get some very cool textures happening. And you know, it's simply using the texture that we've loaded in as some sort of noise to create that kind of pattern. And if we press T on the keyboard, we can undo what we've done. Okay, so this way you can do some very cool Rorschach kind of, you know, effect. And if we press R on the keyboard, look at that beauty. All right, then we can go through and press W on the keyboard, W on the keyboard, and we can start making magic. And this way we can create some cool stuff. So this way we've made this sort of pattern, and we can simply use our mesh filter. So let's go over to where we have that inflate, and inflate this bad boy and get something happening. Other things that you can do with this is this also works with symmetry. So for those wondering, yep, it does work with symmetry, and that means that at any point in time you can simply hold down shift and tap A on your keyboard and you can create something like that. And you know, regardless, you can do whatever you want. So let's say you want this within 4 different parts of your model. Yes, you can. So you can turn on the X and also the Y symmetry, and if I hold down shift and tap A on the keyboard, we can get something going on like that. We can repeat the patterns depending on what we want to do, and that way we can get something looking cool. And we can also choose to get crazy. Okay, so we can also do shift and A and get that tiny thing happen. So remember, I told you guys, if you go through and press E on your keyboard, you can actually overlay what you had before. All right, so we can throw in that overlay, and we can press Y on the keyboard and also throw in a little bit of patterning around there. And because this is a mask, we can also go ahead and take a look at the cloth filter, and then we can use the inflate feature within the cloth filter to drive certain parts, and this way you can now start seeing. So for those who might be thinking about creating things like some landscape, maybe you want to create some sort of environment art, or maybe you're thinking about creating some, you know, beautiful looking abstract art, then this is something I guess you guys would definitely fall in love with. So let's talk about one tiny feature I know you guys would like to work with, and that has to do with the face set. So if we go in and we hold down shift and we press W on the keyboard, you remember we have this. Okay, so let's actually do that real quick. So if we hold down shift, press W, we have this. let's actually start from the beginning, and let's start from here. Shift and W gives us that. So we're just going to go ahead and press W to get more. Okay, so we're just going to get more of that, and then we can start up from here. Shift and W, and we would switch this to 2, 3. That's cool. And then we're going to press W a couple of times, you know, to just get something like that. It doesn't really matter right now. And now once we have this going, the next thing which I would like to show you guys is that at any point in time you select your cloth and you would like to do some inflation, there is something right here. You probably wouldn't be able to see it, so I'm just going to go ahead and stretch this all the way out. If you click on this button and make sure you have your face set turned on and also the mesh boundary, you can now do some crazy stuff. Remember the last time which we talked about creating this, we said that you can overlay and overlap this. Yeah, there is also a very cool trick that you can now use with this to create some very interesting patterns. So I can go ahead and press the same E key that I showed you guys earlier, and with that overlaying effect you can now see we have several face sets that is now here. So the face sets that have been overlaid, you now get to see them, and with that setting and this right here, if I grab this and drag this all the way up, we can now make some sort of inflation around there, and we can also do some more stuff like this. So this way you can now start making some very creative stuff. So this is more like the cool stuff that is now available in Blender 2.93. But before we go ahead and talk about some more stuff, which are more of the updates that you get to see, let's quickly talk about something. So there is actually this beautiful stuff I think you guys really need to know. I purchased it and I'm definitely going to do a video about it just to show you guys some more stuff about it. And that is that once you have your mask right there and then you choose to press Y on the keyboard to create patterns like this, remember we said once you press W you now have some stuff like so. All right, so once you have this and click, remember what we have is just this. So what if you would like to layer things on top of every other thing? So I've been looking for something that can help me with this situation for a while now, and I ran into a tool which I think it's best to share with you guys. We can go ahead and go to the smooth and smooth this out. All right, so this isn't the problem. Now the problem is we cannot literally control how much things that we get to layer, and that is why this add-on is lovely. So I'm going to put a link in the description that will take you guys over to the Gumroad just in case you want to get this add-on. And what this does is literally simple. Once you press the plus button, you can save a layer, and then you can add a different layer and you can sculpt on top of that layer. Let's say we're done with this and I just simply hit Alt and M, and I would like to add some more stuff right here. So I'm just going to go ahead and add some more stuff. And let's say what I would like to add right now has to do with a couple more noise. Maybe I want to add some more noise patterns around parts like this. Let's say this is, you know, I'm just feeling excited about this tool and I want to do some more stuff. So let's say I've added something like so, and with that I'm just going to click on save and then hit Alt and M. So what does this add-on do? This add-on can help you take a look at your layers and also sculpt based off layers. So if you turn off this layer right now, you still have your mesh, and then if you add some more things, so if I click on the plus sign at this point and I go over to, let's say, the blob, and I use the blob to add some details, so let's scroll all the way down. So if I go over to this section and I use the blob to add some details, let's press F on the keyboard and let me just add a couple of details right here, or just simply increase this part. We can now save that. So what happens is if I turn this off, we go back, and if I turn this off, we go back. So this is just something I ran into, and I think it just makes sense to share it with you guys so that you guys can take a look at it. Of course, we're going to do a much more detailed video about this one, so just simply keep this one in mind, or you can simply purchase it and try it for yourself. So with this said, let's talk about some more stuff that is now available in Blender. So right now the folks at Blender Foundation, they are looking at how they can make the asset browser and also the pose library work with the asset view, and this is to allow regular layouts to show the mini versions of the assets that you want to drag in. For me, I think this makes sense because it is pretty interesting to see. And for those who don't know what we're talking about, if you simply change your editor type from here over to your asset browser, you can literally load in an asset, and your asset can be anything. All right, so let's say we have this object and we would like to throw it as an asset. We can right click, go all the way to where we have our ID data, and then we can simply mark this one as an asset, and that way we'll be able to have it. So they're looking at ways that they can expand on this and also make it look even way better than it currently looks right now. Something else that they're working on is if you go over to your file and also go over to the cleanup, there's now a beautiful improvement to how you can clean up recursive and also unused data. So there's a full improvement in terms of the purge operator. And then for those who are excited about some cool stuff, there's also an improvement to the scrubbing performance. Now let's talk more about some updates that is coming from the community. So in case you don't know, there's a beautiful movie known as Wolf Walkers, and it's just pretty interesting to see that Blender played a huge role in bringing this thing to life. There's a small read right here that you can actually go ahead, read and get informed, and also get a couple of ideas about, and it has to do with 2D isn't dead, it just became something different using Blender for Wolf Walkers. Wolf Walkers is an amazing and very nice 2D styled like animation. Kind of love the style, pretty different from so many other stuff, and it just looks pretty nice. So I did see this movie before. It's very, very interesting, and it's very cool to see that Blender also was used in making several parts of this movie. So for those who like to read more about this, or maybe you want to go see the movie, I'm also going to put a link in the description that will take you over to this page where you can read these things for yourself. Now with that said, the folks at 3dplugin.com, they now have a free version of their UV Packer. Previously, the UV Packer was only available for those who are working with 3D Studio Max, and now it is interesting to see that we now have that for Blender. And the cool thing about this one is the one for Blender is for free, so you can actually go ahead and grab this one and start working with it. This is by far way cleaner than what you can get with Blender, and it's just very impressive to see that this tool is currently available for those who would want to grab it, and it is also for free. And with that said as well, for those who are looking for the sculpt layer, like I said earlier, I'm just going to put a link in the description where you can grab this tool and also start working with it. Meanwhile, for those also looking for stylized brushes, you're looking for stylized alphas, you can also get the stylized alphas from the folks at Zen Shaders, and this is pretty nice. So this is more like it. Link to all of these things that we've talked about is definitely going to be in the description so that you can do well to check them out. Tell me what you guys think about this one in the comment section, and of course, if you like this video or you learned something from this, you can go ahead and give it a like, and don't forget to share with a friend. And if you're new here, it's going to be amazing for you to hit the subscribe button and also turn on notifications so that you don't miss next video or the next update. And until I see you guys again with a tutorial update, Free Friday, Tutorial Tuesday, tips and tricks, things like this. Peace.